and this leads to like the activation stuff. I think. When
Mm.
do you hear about activation
Yeah,
drills?
so that came to me from an
I hear it
experience.
all the time as well. Still,
Yeah, it was a personal experience I had where the claim was woman recently had a baby, so therefore, like from the hormones and stuff like that, like her pelvis was like her ligaments are obviously more like loose because the hormones that are released during labor and things like that, right? So a bit of laxity at the joints, and because of that, we need to do like 10 minutes of activation drills to put her pelvis into place before we can start doing exercises safely.
Different place.
Yeah, and I said, do you think in 5 minutes you can move someone's pelvis? And he said, yeah.
That's an extreme. That's so extreme.
So, yeah, maybe that is a
there's
bit extreme.
just so much within that. Like, there's so many like if A, then B, and then therefore it must be C, and then therefore we need to do D, and then so then E. It's like what we're still at A. What do you mean by A? Like A is joint laxity. Joint laxity is normal in pregnancy. You need joint laxity because you have a fucking human in a
Mm.
in a body. So there's normal hormonal changes, and it's not necessarily related to pain all the time. It can very much be like as part of the pain experience related because the body's changing and the body's trying to protect a new human. So of course, like there's joint laxity changes, but to like there's so many other like causal claims within that. I don't even know where to start. Like what where to start?
But
Who are we talking about? Is it a pregnant? Like, are we talking about pregnancy and like pain during pregnancy? Is that the context?
no, it was after she had a child. Like she had a child maybe like a few months ago.
Did they have like serious medical condition where they had like I don't know continued joint laxity?
No, not to my understanding.
So there's
So was
like
it
it. Go for it.
was
Yeah.
the whole idea of like change, Victor, was the whole idea of changing from like pregnancy body back to normal body? Was that the whole like concept?
I don't think it was that per se. It was just I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest. It's just what I heard and I try to make sense of it. It's not up to me to like try and figure out what they were thinking. Um, which makes this whole thing hard. Maybe, yeah, maybe that's a bit too extreme. But that's where I got the idea of activation drills. Maybe we could take a step back because I feel like we'll be here all day trying to unpack that claim. Maybe we could just say like activation, like people who use activation drills as like a warm up.
Yeah.
Um, it's because they need to activate their glutes because they're maybe sedentary office worker. They've got gluteal amnesia, and they need a tennis ball to wake the glute up for their squats, right? And that's a step down from there, surely, right?
Yeah, that's a bit more like bridges, do bridges prior to activate your glutes.
I'm seeing you shake your head there, Daniel.
Yeah, there's like the shortest answer is no. So activation is just recruitment of muscle fibers for muscle contraction. So if you can stand up, you've got glute contraction. So you don't need to lie on the floor unless you want to, unless you like enjoy the exercises. Absolutely, go for it. But like if you can stand up and sit down, that's a warm up for a squat. If you're doing a squat, if you're doing like a high end, like a 100 kilo squat, you wouldn't jump under the bar and do 100 kilos. You do body weight squats and then warm up to 100 kilos. I was with a client doing rock climbing, and some of the preparations for rock climbing you would do with like a hangboard, for instance, to prepare the fingers or like to prepare the body and the tissues of the body according to the task, but it depends on the task. So I think as a generalized statement, there's a lot of overdoing of specific warm up activities. And if your client's paying you for your and their time and they've got specific goals, the question is how related is that to their goals? And if it is related to they want to improve their floor-based exercises for whatever reason, valid, go for it. Do all those activation drills. but that's related to their goals. But if you're doing it for specific warm-ups for specific muscles, is that the kind of
like
idea?
medius with the resistance band.
The simplest, like practical step is like, well, what happens if you don't do them? And you just go under the bar.
Yeah,
And so people can experience it for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking like if I was talking to someone about this, I would say try a session without the warm-up and try a session with the warm-up and see if your power output changes drastically now that your nerve fibers are conducting at a faster velocity, right? You'll probably find that there's no difference. And yeah, because the whole thing for me was like when if you told someone, oh, if you can stand up, then you got glute activation, right? But I feel like people have the perception that to get that, like, because they've been sitting down all day or something like that, the activation is at like a lower percentage, and by doing glute bridges, you're putting it all the way up to 100%. You know, that's what I've heard, and like that's what I would think in my experience. And then yeah, but I guess just comparing it to a non-warm-up session would prove it wrong. But yeah, Henry.
I think it comes back to this idea that like everyone thinks it's a mechanical warm up and like it's a mechanical thing that's happening. It's activating these muscles more, but really it's more a like, in my opinion, like a psychological sort of thing, because people who get up from say working all day, they feel like shit. I've been sitting all day. My body's not going to be able to work. I jump into it like my normal lift, a heavy lift, into like my main exercise, core exercise, psychologically, and we know like how important it is in terms of like temporal summation, all that sort of stuff. How psychological sort of states can change your ability to actually perform, right?
Yeah.
So by this person going to the gym, getting there, you know, doing 5 minutes on the bike, sitting down, doing floor exercises, maybe their mind's just becoming more in tune with like actually working out, and then their ability to perform is better. So
I would say I feel like music, if you have a really good song on, that would be equal, if not more effective.
yeah, right, exactly.
Because then you're in the mood, you know, your brain's really engaged with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's preparation methods, like it's the same with foam rolling and all that shit. Like it's just all really just that preparation stuff.
It might just be a ritual that they enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's not getting in the way of anything. I think the maybe where it is less helpful is if they think they need to do it, or they think they can't go straight to a bodyweight squat.
But
that's a different story.
Yeah, but if you think you can't go straight to a bodyweight squat, like if you were doing the activation drills, you would just stop them then. If you could go straight to a bodyweight, like I feel like people who are doing those drills are maybe a fear avoidant, and like they're scared to go into a bodyweight squat instantly. So that's why they want to sort of work up.
Yeah, definitely. Like I would say like most of the people I see in the gym going into that stuff, and even me, like prior to like sort of opening my mind up to this stuff, everyone sort of does their stretching and stuff before squats and all that. Everyone's sort of scared or not prepared, and they think it's part of preparation. I don't think they do it because they know it's going to improve. I think definitely they do it because they feel they need to, and it's the norm to have to do it. Everyone tells them, like all these Instagram people say that's what you have to do, and they have the fear of, you know, getting injured or not lifting what they could possibly. Yeah,
it's a good point. And I used to do the same. I used to have my own 20-minute, I think, warm-up. You start with trigger ball releases and then specific range of motion mobility exercises for my shoulder in particular. I've got GERD, glenohumeral internal rotation deficit, whatever the fuck that has to do with anything of my goals. It doesn't. But like I had that, like I did a mobility test back in the day and I had less range. So I would be doing that before any kind of overhead movement. So what helped me was exactly as you said, trying to do less and seeing what happens.
like we found. Sorry, one thing before you go, Victor. Like even with some of this study, our lecturer who we mentioned before, who made that claim, he did make another there was another. It was backed by research. Statement made, which sort of links back to what we're saying here, which was that static stretching prior to performing squats actually reduced reduce the ability or
Power
strength. Was it
output.
power output by like, I think it was a significant percentage. It was like 30 something percent, something like that.
I forgot
Which
the
is
specifics
interesting.
of that one, but yeah, I think in general it can take energy and time. If you're doing like a long hold, I think with that one they did like a prolonged duration static stretching.
Depends on the method.
Um, sorry?
Yeah.
Depends on the methods, like how long do they stretch? What was the
Yeah.
protocol?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, if you're stretching for like 45 seconds plus for 3 sets and it's like a high intensity stretch, then like I'm gassed out almost before I'm doing like a 1RM or like a power, plyometric.
Yeah.
So I can see where that definitely can play into it. So yes, static stretching can take away from performance sometimes, but then for others, it's just movement. They're not holding it for longer than 15 seconds, and they're not doing like a full regime, like structured program for it,
Yeah.
and they enjoy it, and they have static stretching goals. They want to do the splits. Do the splits then. That's part of that's a part of the training. We have to include that as part of an actual exercise.
I have a question for clinical practice. If someone presented to you with those like sort of characteristics of the warm up and activation drills, that sort of thing, would it be wise to, well, first of all, sort of educate them about like why they're doing it, questioning stuff like that, and then my idea was like, would weaning them off the exercise like one by one be a good idea? Like maybe they have 10 exercises before they do their squat. Well, maybe we'll start 9 today, and then next session we'll do 8, and then something like that. Would that be a viable option, do you think?
Yeah, it would always starting point would be what's their goal. So if their goal is general health, well-being, strength, hypertrophy, performance for outside the gym, then it's like, oh, okay. Well, what's the like who gave you these 10 exercises to do? What was the function of these 10 exercises? How are these 10 exercises working for you? Have you tried doing 9 before? So that's like the questioning.
Yeah.
Because I need to understand where they're coming from. I can't just like make a bold statement and be like telling them what to do without knowing what their goals are or who they are, their history. If they're like really receptive and they're like, I'll do anything you say, I'm like very open book. Cool. All right, let's try. What if we tried like let's just do a session. No warm up, as in none of your 10 exercises. Would you be willing to that? And more than likely, they probably want to do a few. So then that's another conversation. But if they're like, no, like I trust you, let's do it. Cool. Let's go into the bar. Let's see what happens. What do you notice? How's that? Yeah, good. Cool. Awesome. Welcome to
Yeah.
the new
I was
program.
gonna ask Daniel, just if you are, so for us, for example, if you have this understanding of like maybe the importance of warm up isn't as like when say doing PT and getting someone to do back squat, for example, in a session, if they assume and they think that it's a necessity warm up prior to, and you come into it with them as a trainer and you say we're going to go and start doing back squats straight away, like how do you approach something like that where you might have the trainer itself might have a better understanding and mindset that this isn't needed, but then the client is still in that mindset and like they think it may be unprofessional if you don't go and perform the warm-ups?
Depends on who's paying for the session. So whose session is it? Is it my session?
Their session.
If it's my session, then like I would do whatever the fuck I want. I'd be paying my client, I don't know, to exercise. That'd be weird. But if they're paying for my time and my expertise, I would ask them, what are your goals? What do you want from me? What are your expectations? And be like clear, honest, transparent. And then essentially the principle is autonomy. So they can choose, and like it's not harmful. It's not like they're hurting themselves. Like there's major risk of self-harm or harm to others, or like long-term implications when it comes to these, they're just 10 movements. So I'm like, okay, cool. Do you enjoy them? That's like where I'd start. And is it related to your goals? And how have they worked for you? And then maybe like, would you be open to learning a bit more about what we know about activation stuff? Because I used to do these activation drills. often in practice, it ties back to a previous injury or a pain like experience, or like they're afraid, like you said, fear, anxiety. So then that's a different topic. And that's like, cool, normalizing pain and fear and anxiety. And then that might be a different starting point to an interaction and a conversation with them.
Okay. And if they sort of didn't have that presumption to warm up and you just went, like you could direct them in that way, would you, instead of just saying, okay, let's start doing the squat, would you explain at all about that we don't need to warm up? Or would you just say, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's many ways to it. Like I'm imagining if I was representing a brand or a gym where everyone around me is doing like warm-ups, it would be pretty fucking weird if I just got onto the bar, at least to my colleagues. I'm just thinking of examples of the context and the environment. But if it's like full autonomy, I can do whatever I want within, ethical healthcare. Like I have choices with how I go about the session, and they're paying for my time. And we've had a discussion about their goals and what their needs are and expectations and any concerns that they have. Cool, all sorted. Then I would invite them if it's part of their goals. If their goals are strength and hypertrophy, I'd be like, would you be open to making your session as efficient as possible and like getting to those goals and being as strong as possible? Cool. Would it be? We're going to do a few things that are different. Is that okay? Like, would you be willing to try a few things? Yeah, cool. Okay. So what if we started with a squat with the bar? Let's say their 1 RM is, I don't know, 60 kilos. And okay, so they probably could do 20 kilos warm up. Okay, well, the question for them would be, what are your expectations if you just do warm ups with the 20 kilo bar? And then I base it from there.
Okay.
So it's very explorative, like it's exploration, kind of setting up the context for them to experience it rather than me telling them.
Yeah. Back to the goals. I don't think any goal could justify doing like those 10 activation drills unless you really wanted to do them, right? Like because if your goal is for hypertrophy or strength or something like that, you would. I don't think anyone's goal is to spend like unnecessary extra time at the gym. That people want to officially they want to be able to just be like. I'm assuming like if they could get rid of something that maybe wasn't contributing to their goals, they would be up for that idea. Do you want to say something, Henry?
I would just say their goal could be to be injury free. And then they think that doing these warm ups will make them injury.
And that would probably be a good place to like talk more about it and why they think that would be preventing injury, and then sort of have a discussion from there.
Yeah.
Yep, and looking at the history of injuries.
Mm.
And validating that makes complete sense. I would also want to prevent injuries.
Yeah.
Makes complete sense. Like it's a very common goal. And then so, yeah, basing it off their experiences.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've deviated a bit from the original like breaking down. We broke down the claims, but yeah, we went a bit into clinical practice there.
Well, it's good. We've sort of integrated it. It's good.
Yeah, bit of everything. But yeah, I think we've done all our claims right for this episode.
Yeah, we've touched them all.
Yeah, I think final thoughts and sort of big takeaways from today's pod. Yeah, what should clinicians and students and even people around you, general population, what should they take away from this, do you think?
Henry first, palming it off.
I would say from a takeaway from what I've sort of touched on today and what we've all sort of touched on today is that certainty in both students and clinicians is probably the worst thing to have, in my opinion. Like now that I've come to see this, that as soon as you have that certainty, then you're not going to be, or you know someone who has certainty in what they're thinking, what they're doing. Obviously, certainty is good, but to some extent, you need uncertainty to be able to be curious and ask questions and break down claims like we have today, and to change practice and to find out new methods and to, not always be a sheep and follow what everyone says, and yeah, that's what I think has come out of today, and hopefully other students can see that as well.
Yeah, that was really useful. The uncertainty is normal, and like there's varying levels of certainty. It's not like you go 0% uncertain. I don't know anything about anyone. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm nothing. It's not like you're there, and it's not like you're 100%. Okay, definitely 100% confident, but like awareness of your certainty levels, because it's so easy to just never question, and then you're never curious. So I think what you've done, we've both done in this podcast, has been showcasing and role modeling the exact questions that I ask, the exact questions that clinicians should be asking. The most experienced senior clinicians in the world, the academics, this is their full-time job, to ask questions and find out how to find more information and test theories. So yeah, I think the curiosity, and then building on it from a practical standpoint, the probably the best question that I can think of is what's the purpose of this? So what's the function of activation drills for this person? Like, why are you doing this? And that can help uncover, oh, it's because I thought it reduces injury or prevents injury. Okay, cool. So then that uncovers a new avenue for people to explore and to try something different. But if you never ask that question, you just assume that it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think coming back to what Henry said about like being certain is pretty much a death sentence, right? From a knowledge standpoint, because you don't like, we could, to even make this episode, we needed some level of uncertainty, because we could have just said, oh no, this is definitely true, like our beliefs are definitely true, and there's no need to explore this, right? So by doing that, you're missing valuable parts of like critical reflection and improving upon your practice and your beliefs and getting closer to the truth, right? So I think a few takeaways for me would be, don't trust everything you see, like especially at uni, where some sources might not be as reliable as you might think. That was a big one for me. And define everything, because we've learned that definition matters a lot, and it can mean different things to different people, and it has different purposes for different people. And explore nuances and frame claims in a way which allows you to explore the complexities and the nuances within the topic. So things like bad or good or stability, without addressing the who, what, when, where, why, how of the topic. I think that's also another bad way to go about it. So those are just a couple of big takeaways for me, and I hope a lot of other people could get those and hopefully implement in their own lives and critically analyze their beliefs and claims in the way we just did today. So yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'd just say that, like, even looking at what we've done today, looking at these claims that we've talked about, like, we haven't found certainty in ourselves of how we understand these claims, but we have developed a better understanding of them, and we've talked about them, discussed different viewpoints to these claims, and yeah, that's I think is what is needed in most people, is don't try to find things, don't try to find definitive answers. It's not necessary most of the time. You actually find out more and gain a better understanding if you don't, in most cases.
Yeah, and I can see even, have you guys listened to your previous podcasts?
I haven't had a lot to.
No, you hate listening to the sound of your voice like me?
Yeah.
Yep. Because I can see, I've already noticing throughout this entire conversation, a lot of changes in the way that you ask questions and the way that you guys think through what you say and how you process information. So I think this is a good podcast for the listeners, have like a privilege of seeing it in action and seeing how you've just like grown over the however many months, short amount of months, with your learning and your thinking. I think it's amazing. So hopefully it's of value to you as well as for your own reflective practice. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to 2024.
Of course.
Good. Thank you so much for that, Dan. Hopefully we'll see you again. Hopefully not too much though. We need other guests. in
Get some
2020.
physios, get some osteos, chiros,
Yeah.
podiatrists,
That's in the works.
lecturers, clients, everyone. Get the people that say these claims. No, that'd be too controversial.
That would
That'd be
that
so
would-
fun.
That'd be
Yeah.
a long podcast.
That'd be fireworks.
all right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.